Hey everyone, it's Clint. So I came independently of anybody else, came to realize that there's this art style that seems to be prevailing everywhere. And I'm not into animation, so I didn't know what to call it. Turns out there is a name for it, but you're seeing it here on the Aquaman King of Atlantis first look image reveals cartoon Arthur and Mira. All right, so looking at this, I think it just looks like every other Cartoon Network thing that's out there. And this is more of a commentary on, I guess, the evolution of cartoons in culture than anything else. And so I want to get into that. First, check out Fatal. I don't know what art style you call this. I just call it amazing. You can back this on Indiegogo right now. It's in the link in the description below. And Downcast issue number 1. This is the newsprint version that Alternate Comics is putting out. And this is just the first 26 pages. You can pick this up right now. Again, link in the description below. They have arrived and they are shipping now. All right. So you may have remembered when Thundercats came out, you heard similar things as with Aquaman. You look at this art style and it's ugly face first, big-eyed teeth, gaping maw, open maws, and roundness. I don't know what else to say about it, but it seems to be an ongoing theme. Turns out it's called the CalArts style. Now, I don't know if that's actually what it's called or if that turns out to be sort of a derogatory term. I've heard both things online, but when it comes down to it, there's definitely a recognizable trend in illustration, animation rather, that has shifted. Now, I see this in comics as well. So initially, my thought is to say, this is just ugly. I don't like it. And that's right. I don't like it because it's ugly. But that's my personal opinion. When I also think back, and I'm trying to be fair, I think of, comic books used to get a bad reputation and people thought of it as trash art. And now today, many comic collectors will revere certain comic art as just fantastic art that stands among any great art out there. And it truly, deserves some credit. So am I being an old curmudgeon by when looking at this art saying this is trash? Or is there something to it? Well, let's look a little bit further. I think this art style could work and does work for some things. Again, Battletoads was another series. I don't even know if this is out yet or not. Again, it's not for me, I guess. But I used to play the video game. The video game was incredibly difficult, and I think I still have it around. It was fun because I could never beat it. It was incredibly frustrating. Was it fun or did I hate it? I don't know. But there's a cartoon of it, and again, it has the same kind of style. Why is there a movement away from realism to not just expressive cartoons that are stylized, but they're stylized in seemingly the exact same way? That would be my criticism. Again, DuckTales. So maybe it works for some things that are a little bit more cartoony, but it doesn't work for things that we already have in our, imagination and in our history as being more realistic. Something like perhaps Aquaman, or like Thundercats, or many other cartoons and other properties that have moved this direction. So I looked up this article here on animation, and it's interesting to me because there does seem to be a pretty big divide. Again, I'm not in animation, I write comic books. But listen to this. Adventure Time, Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, Star versus the Force of Evil. It's not hard to argue that this past decade has seen many great cartoons and well-developed characters, beautiful music, and deep storytelling to begin to overtake the episodic wasteland wrought by SpongeBob SquarePants and others. Holy cow, harsh words for SpongeBob. But that is not all these shows have in common. According to some, these and other modern cartoons all suffer, supposedly, from a disease called CalArts style by many who criticize / complain on the internet. But what exactly do these critics mean by the term CalArts style? And they go on to explain that it is a thin arts animation, but it's become to mean so much more. They go on to say that it is a simplistic style. Now, I've seen many simplistic styles, but what is being pointed out is not just that it's simplistic. It's that it's developing essentially a trope, or it's coloring what it is that cartoons look like currently. In 20 years from now, when they talk about this point in animation, there's going to be a style that you could describe and explain. I think I personally have just gotten to the point where I can describe or explain what it is. And at that point, doesn't it become a trope? I was watching WandaVision with my wife, and something that stuck out to me is that I don't want to spoil anything, I guess, if you're interested in watching it, but each episode is done in the style of sitcoms during a certain era, during a certain decade. And those sitcoms had their own little ins and outs and flares and tropes that you can clearly define, and they're very recognizable. But at the time, they probably weren't so much. They were breaking new ground. So once people start to recognize this, I would argue, are they breaking new ground, or are they rehashing the same thing because they think it seems to work, that people seem to like it? Now, if I looked at anime, I could say that there's some maybe simplicity to it. And I realize that many people are going to say, anime fanatics are going to say, well, hey, there's different art styles in anime. It's not all the same art style. Well, sure, but it's still generally recognizable. Anybody, even that doesn't watch anime, would look at it and say, well, that's anime. It looks like anime. There's something that it's related to in that family, of animation, that just makes sense. It looks similar in certain ways, and people can define it, and people shoot for that style. But ultimately, the question is, does the CalArts style have what it takes to last and become a cultural, landmark, become something that continues throughout the decades? I would argue that anime has definitely become one of those art styles that just it's very recognizable. People don't want to see it go. Maybe because it can be very, very pretty looking. It can look nice. And so I guess my question for you is the CalArts style of art, is it good? Is it something that's going to stand the test of time? Is there a reason, and a good reason, why all cartoons are out in this style? Or do you just not care because you don't watch cartoons anymore like me? Anyway, let me know in the comments below. I really appreciate it. One note of business here, because I write comics, but I've also written a novel, and I wanted to float a question out there. If I included a novel in my next crowdfunding campaign as sort of an add-on, nothing expensive, like $10 to $15, I'm leaning toward just $10. Would that be something you'd be interested in as an add-on, or not at all? I'm just trying to think of things to add to the campaign that you might be interested in, and that way they can ship together, saves everybody money, and gets you more entertainment. So I would love to know that in the comments below. Appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.